Hello, Tampa Bay fans. You're listening to The William Haynes Show, your online radio home for Tampa Bay sports talk and Rays postgame shows. Stay tuned throughout baseball season for live coverage after most Rays games with comprehensive coverage of all 162 games from April through October. Got something to say? We'd love to hear it. Give us a call, internationally toll-free. 877-566-1020, or send us a tweet at WHBC Official. Don't go anywhere. Tonight's program will be starting in just a couple of minutes.
HBC. The Rays are now 6 for 6 against the Baltimore Orioles. It is a good evening to you and how you be. William Haynes here, you there, here at 11:10 on this Sunday night. This late Rays postgame edition is live from the WHBC studio in Clearwater, Florida. If I did not mention this Rays postgame edition of the William Haynes Show. As I said, WHBC studio, Clearwater, Florida. A 7-1 win in order to discuss tonight over Baltimore. A 3-game sweep at the Trop. They already had clinched the winning homestand, and they are now unbeaten in their last 9 series, 7-0-2 in that regard. They have a very interesting road trip coming up at Chicago White Sox and at the Mariners, and we'll discuss some of that towards the end of the program. But of course, most of the show, it's a post-game show, so today's 7-1 win. The Rays are now a season-high watermark, 18 games over 500. They're now 19-14 at home, and they're on a run where they have won, or I believe they're 12-2 in their last 14 home games, and I think somewhere along the lines of I think 10-1 the last 11 games that they faced a left-handed starter, and the reason we bring that up is because for a while there, and most of that was in April and May when the Rays were really doing bad against left-handed pitching, but the record has not been so bad in games where the opponent has started a lefty. So another win was in order against the lefty Bruce Zimmerman for the O's. For the Rays, it was a little bit of a bullpen day, and it went somewhat as anticipated, as we predicted on last night's program. Michael Wacha got the start, as it's really up in the air exactly what the Rays are doing with him, whether they're getting him stretched back out to be a traditional starter in this rotation, if they're trying to get him to be kind of a 3 or 4 inning guy, maybe like a Fleming or a McHugh out of the pen, although I don't think he's quite a weapon as the other two in that discussion, or exactly what the plan is. Maybe he's just going to be a 2-inning guy like he's been since coming off the injured list. But his pitch count has not been bumped up really at all since coming off. It's been all kind of 25, 30 pitch outings where he goes, 2 innings or so. Looking, of course, today against the O's, he goes 2 innings, 28 pitches. The time before that against Texas, 2 2/3 of 42. So there was the bump up there. And so because of that, we anticipated maybe 3 innings, 50 pitches, but that was just not the case. And then the time before that, an inning and 2/3 of 24. 3 innings, 25 pitches, 2 innings, 24 pitches, and then that was before he went on the injured list. And for Walker, it was just a hamstring issue, so I'm not exactly sure if it's an issue that's maybe still plaguing him. But like I said, we're all just trying to follow along, and he was okay. Gave up a run over the 2 innings. I did not think was really that great. He's not really shown much of anything since coming off the injured list, so maybe that's why they are a bit hesitant to continue to stretch him back out. I think they're content with who they have in their rotation right now. I think they have Luis Patino as well down in Durham getting some starts, so they've got plenty of guys. I'm not sure if they were going to make a change in the rotation that Michael Wacha would be the guy going in, and the reason we discussed this, of course, is because he's continuing to get playing time for the Rays. His line, a run on 2 hits, a walk, no strikeouts, 28 pitches, 17 for strikes, was also 6 for 8 in establishing the first pitch strike, so I thought that was good. The fastball and cutter were pretty much his only 2 pitches. He went to the changeup quite a bit, but I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. I don't even know how you would get those, but the changeup was not really fooling anyone. They were taken outside the zone easily for balls. I would say probably out of the 11 pitches of his 28 that were balls, I would gander to wage that maybe 7 or 8 of those 11 balls were probably changeups, and it didn't necessarily look like a bad pitch, but it just, anytime that, even especially a lineup like Baltimore, 20 games under 500 now with the loss, when they're not being fooled by the pitch, that's a pretty good gauge. I think that it's not exactly working. So if he's going to be a guy that's going to have to pump fastballs, I mean, kind of low 90s, and then the cutter maybe high 80s depending on if he's cranking it up or not. But I mean, he had fastballs at about 86 in middle part of the plate, and that's been part of our discussion the last few days with some of the guys that have been on the mound, whether you're talking about Rich Hill or Ryan Yarbrough or any of those guys, and then even Shane McClanahan earlier this week against the Nationals. And McClanahan, a guy that throws high 90s, and even with his velo, if you're just throwing fastballs across the plate, you're going to get hit around, which is what happened to Shane in that start. So then the kind of the contrast, but also the similarity in guys like Rich Hill and Michael Wacha, when they get backed into a corner where they're not able to effectively use that off-speed pitch for Rich Hill, the curveball for Michael Wacha, the changeup. If you don't have the control of the pitch, if their ball's out of the hand, you can't get them called for strikes at all. Hitters are just going to read that and take it every time they see it come, over home plate. So. And you're backed into a corner where you don't have spectacular stuff with your fastball and not high velocity either. And a guy in Michael Wacha that throws, a really high percentage amount of strikes, but when it's just, high 80s, low 90s fastballs and cutters, that's not going to end up working too well for you. He started off the game. He gave up a leadoff single to the lefty DJ Stewart, then hit Trey Mancini on a pitch that ran up and in, so he did have some control issues going on, but then got a double play ball, so kind of similar to that Rich Hill outing yesterday where he would give up a single or a walk, and then the Rays defense was doing some spectacular things, erasing those base runners with double plays. But then in the second of his 2 innings, a leadoff walk for Austin Haynes, which is never a good thing, and looking at that at bat, it was a 6-pitch at bat, but a fastball up and in taken, cutter up and away, and then a couple of changeups down and away to the righty again that were just being taken with 2 strikes, mind you, as well. And they were somewhat on the border of the strike zone, and Hayes was easily taking them in a leadoff walk. So oftentimes they end up coming across a score, and they did it. And at this time, Freddie Galvis laid down a sacrifice bunt to move Hayes to second base, an incredible play made by Joey Wendell over there to even get the out at first. A ground out by Franco moves Hayes to third, and then with 2 outs, Pat Valleca was able to hit an RBI single for the game's first run, and Baltimore taking another early lead, as surprisingly, they've been able to do in this series. Looking at that, Valleca RBI double just to see the pitch that it came on a 2-2 count, and it was just a changeup middle. So I guess the one time that the O's were swinging at the changeup, they were able to do some damage off of it, which that was that was kind of Michael Wacha's adding in a nutshell. But then you also had Josh Fleming go 4 innings hitless and just 1 walk over that span as well. 63 pitches, just kind of really mowing the Orioles down. And really, what's new? This entire series really has been the same in that Baltimore maybe scores an early run or 2, and then the Rays take the lead right after, and then Baltimore, they don't get a runner past first base, the rest of the game. In fact, the O's did not get a single base runner after the 3rd inning. They had a 2-out walk in the 3rd to Trey Mancini, and then after that, the last 19 Orioles went down in a row. So that's 1, 2, 3 innings in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. I mean, just the bullpen really in full effect, and they were really terrific yesterday. And again, all weekend, where the bullpen has had to go significantly more innings than the starter, and they've basically been perfect. 4 from Fleming, and then 3 guys going an inning. Matt Whistler making his Rays debut, and he was 11 of his 12 pitches were sliders. So that was very interesting that, the Rays were saying that they want him to throw that pitch a lot. I don't know if they meant that much, but, a high percentage of sliders for Whistler. An inning for Kittredge where he just looked absolutely terrific, picking up 2 strikeouts, and then Jeffrey Springs sealing the deal in a 7-1 game in the 9th. So the bullpen doing their thing. And the offense, really, for most of the game, it was, again, kind of the similar narrative, just enough. Of course, the Rays went down 1-0 in the 2nd. Then in the bottom of the 3rd, it was an RBI single for Yandy Diaz to tie the game at 1, and they leave some base runners there in the 3rd. Then in the 4th, it ended up being a 2 RBI single for Taylor Walls in what was a 3-4 day for Walsey, and had a really nice day at the plate, probably one of his better days at the plate as a big leaguer. And then, of course, and by the way, that 2 RBI single in the 4th made it 3-1, and that score held all the way till the bottom of the 7th when the Rays had the bases loaded to Randy Arozarena, and he gets kind of a slider or a changeup down and away. And for really the first time, at least that I can recollect this season, puts a really good swing on it and goes opposite field for a home run, just barely over the wall over there in right center. But 410 feet, that's not a cheapy home run. If anything, that's just a testament to how much of a pitcher's park Tropicana Field can be. And as it seems that's especially been the case over the last handful of seasons during this spectacular Rays run. And also an interesting anecdote as well in the 7th. They had 2nd and 3rd with 1 out, and the righty Cesar Valdez, and I don't know what the issue was. They didn't want to go to someone else or what, but they, with 1 out, 2nd and 3rd, they intentionally walk Austin Meadows, who is pinch hitting for Mike Brasso. And Austin Meadows has really just been in kind of a funk lately, has not looked that terrific. They intentionally walk him. And okay, if it was maybe to bring up a guy like Brasso, or looking at other guys that have hit cleanup lately, I mean, if it was Kevin Kiermaier, Zunino, someone like that. I mean, pick a guy, Brett Phillips, someone like that. Yes, you intentionally walk to bring that batter to the plate. Who's intentionally walking someone to bring up Randy Arozarena with the bases loaded? And Randy made him pay, of course. It seems like guys always, find motivation in that when they're the guy, that's brought up for the pitcher to face. And hit the first grand slam of his career, the 8th homer that he's hit this season. He's been on a bit of a dry spell in that regard. I think it's been a couple weeks since he's hit a long ball, but I believe extended his 7-game hitting streak not to 8 games. And he's found himself a little bit of a groove, and will, I'd imagine, potentially even hit leadoff at some point in the Chicago series, as they're going to look to maybe line up the best of the best, as they maybe, I think, start gauging themselves in a type of litmus test for maybe some October baseball, because they're going to be playing a really, really good team in the South Side of Chicago here Monday through Wednesday. But again, we'll talk about that towards the end of the program. What we're going to do here is take a short break. When we return, continue our discussion of today's 7-1 Rays win. In the meantime, number to call the show, and we'd love to hear from you, is 877-566-1020. You can also send us a tweet with your Rays thoughts at WHBC Official. And also just make sure to follow us on there as well, even if you're not going to drop us a line, so you get the link to the show whenever it goes live, and we're live after pretty much every Rays game this season. So without further ado, we'll take a short break. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
You're listening to the Rays postgame on the William Haynes Show. We're live most nights within 15 minutes of the final out to break down everything that happened in that day's game and take listener phone calls to get your thoughts. As always, you call the show at 877-566-1020 or tweet the show at WHBC Official. Like you to remember that archives of previous shows can be found on this show's page on Speaker.com and also on the WHBC YouTube channel. We look forward to having some of you on the show. Thanks for calling in.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM. Sports Radio 66. Sports Radio
HBC. And at 11:25, we are back on the William Haynes Show, this Rays post-game edition of the William Haynes Show, talking about today's 7-1 win, capping a 3-game sweep at home over the Baltimore Orioles. Number to call the show is 877-566-1020. You can also drop us a line on Twitter at WHBC Official, and as it is 11:25, let's see maybe if we can get you up and out of here before the cloak of midnight as we head into a very early Monday morning and a start to a new week. And it will be a very interesting week for the Rays as they go on the road, making the final West Coast trip of the year. They'll start with 3 games in the south side of Chicago against the White Sox and then head out to Seattle for 4 games in, the Emerald City against the Mariners team that's not doing too well. So an interesting test. I mean, it's never easy to play at 10 o'clock Eastern. I mean, no matter really who you're playing, but we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. Officially, I guess putting it down in the books here on this show, today's Rays 7-1 win improves them to 18 games over 500, a season-high watermark. I'm not sure the last time they were 18 games above 500. I'm sure Mark Topkin will probably tell us in the next couple of days as he pulls out some notes. They also improved to 42-24 on the year, also 19-14 at home, although they are, I believe, 12-2 in their last 14 home games, so they've really come on strong here as of late, really home or away, as they've won, I believe, 24 of 28. I can't even keep them all straight, but all you need to know really, so we don't get too lost in the weeds. This team is terrific. They're on an absolutely spectacular run. They dropped a Baltimore Orioles team to a dreadful 22-42 on the season, 20 games under 500. They are now 11-21 on the road in 2 hours and 48 minutes, and in front of a paid attendance of 9,101 was the win. Checking in on the AL East standings, Boston has lost a second straight game, so they are now, I think Boston was a half game back or something going into this weekend. The Rays have won all 3 games this weekend, and the Red Sox have lost their last 2, so the Rays are now 3 games up in the American League East. Boston 3 games back of the Rays, so that lead continues to grow a little bit, and these two teams will meet not next week but the following at Tropicana Field for a 3-game set, and I keep propping that up as an interesting test. But who knows? I mean, the American League East standings the Rays could legitimately have a 5 or 6 game lead by the time those two teams meet, and obviously wouldn't that be a really terrific thing. Looking at the box score, the line, the victorious Rays, 7 runs on 10 hits, no errors. And for the O's, 1 run on just 2 hits and 1 error defensively for them. The pitcher decisions, it was Josh Fleming coming behind the opener, if you will. His win improves him to 6-4 in the season. His 4 innings of scoreless relief, he had 1 walk and 3 strikeouts, and getting the loss. And somewhat of a battle of southpaws between Zimmerman and Fleming. Bruce Zimmerman takes the loss. He is now 4-4 over his 5 2/3 innings of work. He allowed 3 runs on 6 hits, 3 strikeouts, and 3 walks in there as well. The starting lineup for the Rays, defense first. In the outfield from left to right, it was Brandon Lau in left field, Brett Phillips in center, Manuel Margot in right, and then in the infield from third to first, Joey Wendell at third, Taylor Walls at shortstop, Mike Brasso got the start at second base, Yandy Diaz at first, Francisco Mejia did the catching, and the designated hitter was Austin Meadows. So against the lefty, they make a couple of interesting calls. They have Kevin Kiermaier on the bench. So instead of KK out there in center, we thought maybe Margot would get the call out there. But instead it's Brett Phillips in center, as I mentioned. And then in the corners, they go with Margot, who we expected to be in the lineup, and then Lau, who maybe we didn't expect quite to be in there. But instead, I guess Meadows probably would have been the only guy out there as well, or maybe Randy Rosarena, but they decided to keep Meadows on the bench, and they want to DH Randy to maybe give him a half day off or whatever. So Brandon Lau gets kind of a rare game out there in the outfield and left, and so that allowed Mike Brasso to go in at second, and then everything else was pretty standard, and Francisco Mejia got the start at catcher as we anticipated, to give Mike Zunino a bit of a rest before the team heads on the road. The way that the batting order was structured, Manuel Margot led off, followed by Yandy Diaz and Mike Brasso. Randy Rosarena hit cleanup. Brandon Lau and Francisco Mejia in the 5-6. And then in the 7-8-9, Joey Wendell, Taylor Walls, and Brett Phillips. Manuel Margot has been hitting leadoff a lot lately, especially against lefties, and including this week as they've played, I want to say, both the starters for Washington were left-handers, I should say, John Lester and Patrick Corbin, and then I believe 2 out of the 3 for the O's were lefties, Keegan Allen on Friday, and then it was the lefty Bruce Zimmerman today. So, of course, that opened the door for Margot this weekend. He's been pretty good, I believe, as well. He's gotten aboard in every game this week in the first inning. You look back on Tuesday against the Nats, led the game off with a home run. Then on Wednesday, a leadoff walk. Friday against the O's, leadoff walk. And then Brandon Lau was the leadoff hitter yesterday, single, and then Margot a single here today. So mostly Margot, but the point I was trying to make is whatever they've been doing with the leadoff hitter, they are 5 for 5 this week for the leadoff man getting on base in the first inning, which is always a terrific thing. Yandy Diaz is going to continue to hit towards the top of the order, especially against lefties in the 2-hole today, 1 for 5, and it looks like maybe he's in a bit of a funk. Mike Brasso, and potentially his final stand, as we were saying right now. We anticipate G-Man Choi being brought back from the 10-day IL because he was eligible to come off today, but it made sense against a lefty just to keep him there for one more day. But it seems like he's healthy and ready to go, and there's no reason to keep him on there. So if he's healthy, you got to bring him up. And who goes down? Looking at the active roster right now, it really doesn't look like there would be a pitcher to be sent down. Matt Whistler, whom they acquired this week from the Giants, he's out of minor league options, so you got to, they're going to have to designate him for assignment if they do decide to get rid of him. You look at candidates maybe to get sent down from the pitching side. Michael Wacha, who I don't believe probably has minor league options if he signed a major league contract as a free agent. So if they're going to designate him for assignment, but if they're going to do that, why was he starting today? So that really doesn't make sense. I'm just going to go ahead and just strike through all of these. Jeffrey Springs, probably the lowest leverage guy out of the pen right now. I guess that could be sent down, but I don't see why you would want to do that. Anyone else? Maybe Shane McClanahan, the starter, but I mean he's penciled in to start against the White Sox in this upcoming series, so that's not very likely. JP Fireeisen would be a no, and so there's no one in there. So the point I'm trying to make is it's going to be a position player that gets sent down, and isn't Mike Brasso, the most logical guy because G-Man Choi is going to be basically playing first base almost every day, so that leaves Yandy Diaz. The only place he can play is at third, and you've also got Joey Wendell at third. So there's going to be that competition in there as well, and so with all that, there's no real room for Brasso. Again, what are you going to send down a pitcher that you could probably use just to keep Brasso as a kind of super utility? Yes, he can play first, second, and third, but I don't know. I don't really see his purpose. With G-Man Choi coming back up. So that's just my guess, and I think with how the pitching went today, it's coming more clear into focus that he is going to be sent down unless they've got some kind of trade or something up their sleeve that they're planning to make. But on a day, maybe his last day as a big leaguer for quite some time, maybe if he's going to be sent down to Durham, because that most likely would be the move, and he's hitting 184, so it would be a crime to send him down. But why is he hitting third maybe on the day before you do that? So it's really, at times, it's hard to get a hold of maybe what this Rays front office is trying to do, but that would be my best guess in a long-winded way of basically saying, even against a lefty, I was a bit surprised to see Brasso that high in the order, but he's hit cleanup mostly against lefties, so just move him up one spot. Randy in the cleanup, I mean, you really want to... The first four hitters in the lineup were righties to go up against lefty Bruce Zimmerman, which I think made the most sense. And then you stack all your lefties really towards the bottom with Lau hitting in the 5 spot, and even though he's heated back up a little bit, and he's now officially back over the Mendoza line at 201, the 5 spot makes the most sense for him. Wendell down at the 7 and Phillips at the 9 with the switch hitters, Mejia and Walls down there towards the bottom as well. So makes sense against a lefty starter. Righties at the top, lefties at the bottom. That's how it works. And they didn't, again, for a while there, and again, Bruce Zimmerman went 5 2/3, only 3 runs. So it's not like they completely knocked the guy around. He did get the loss, but probably one of his better starts as a starter for the O's. And, after 4 innings, it was 3-1. And then it was... Actually, Bruce Zimmerman did not start the 7th, obviously, when the Grand Slam occurred. So I think really did a decent job at keeping kind of the game in front of him. And the Rays did leave a little bit of opportunities, but not too much. Looking at the lineup as a whole, 5 strikeouts and 5 walks compared to 10 hits. So the strikeout numbers were way down. Maybe you point to kind of some inept Baltimore pitching in that. And while Bruce Zimmerman did kind of limit the runs, not a ton of swing and miss stuff, for Zimmerman, he had almost twice as much called strikes as he did swinging strikes. And that was pretty much the story of the day for the Rays lineup. I mean, for Zimmerman, 95 pitches, only 56 for strikes, so, a little bit over 50%, you would say, or probably maybe close to 60%. So a good amount of hitters were starting off 1-0, but it was just quite a bit of taking strikes. I recall in the first inning, it was Randy Arozarena going from 3-0 to striking out. And there would be guys, 2-1, and get some fly ball outs and that kind of thing. So they were in a position to maybe even get more than the 5 walks they did, but 5 walks in any given game is quite a bit. And 3 of those came from Brett Phillips as one of the wildest kind of free swinging guys that I've seen in some time. Anytime he works 3 walks in a single game, that was a surprising sight after he captured the attention yesterday with his hit by pitch antics, pretending to charge the mound against his old chum Jorge Lopez. But either way, anytime 3 of your 5 walks come from your 9-man, especially when it's Brett Phillips, that is a little bit surprising, but you take them where they come. And again, good to see the strikeout numbers down and hits for a lot of guys that probably needed them. Talking about mainly Francisco Mejia, 2 for 3, who has been pretty bad since coming off the injured list with the intercostal issue, in the ribs, which I'd imagine could potentially still be limiting him physically. So maybe that's something that gets him kind of out of the rut. Also, Taylor Walls 3 for 4, and certainly his best average day as a big leaguer. He's got 2 games, one against Dunedin in his Major League debut, and then one last weekend in Arlington against the Rangers, where he had 2 doubles in a game. So you would say probably those are his better games. But 3 for 4 and a switch hitter, those are kind of the games that I've been waiting to see from him. And I believe all 3 of the hits were the opposite way. 2 of them were against Bruce Zimmerman, so he would have been in the righty's batter's box there, pitching him down and away there. And then when he had, I believe, his single in the 8th inning, that would have been Cesar Valdez, who's a righty, so he would have been in the left-handed batter's box, and they had him, pitching down and away there as well, so going the other way for all of his singles, and that was really good to see because spraying hits to all sides of the field is an important thing, and we know there's a lot of guys, not to call anyone out, but Brandon Lau, Austin Meadows that are only hit pitches on the inner half, but then the Rays have got guys like Manuel Margot and even Joey Wendell that can hit pitches probably just as well on either half, whether you're pitching them in or away. And so maybe Taylor Walls, especially as a switch hitter, I mean, if he can hit either half, I mean, that makes him a really hard hitter to face really in any given situation. Starter, reliever, how you match him out of the bullpen, etc. So really want to stress the importance of a nice day at the plate for Taylor Walls, and of course has been so fundamentally sound and nifty as well over there at shortstop. So really pleased with what Taylor Walls was doing, and no question the right move to call him up after the trade of Adames to play shortstop instead of Wander Franco. Wander's day will come, but he's only I think still 21, and Taylor Walls 24 years old and a much more polished prospect, has got far more at bats at the AAA level, and is considered the best defender in the entire Rays organization. Going down maybe briefly 1 through 9 as quickly as we can. We'll try and maybe get this within 10 minutes or less, because I know that we seem to always kind of run a little bit long in this category. And actually before that, what I want to do is maybe just talk about the scoring threats. They had a leadoff single in the first, and the next 3 men were retired. They go down 1, 2, 3 in the second. In the third inning, the first 2 men reached base. It was a leadoff hit the other way for Taylor Walls. Then Brett Phillips walks, so that he can do that with men on base was impressive as well. So first and second, nobody out, and then Margot runs out a double play ball, runners at the corners. Yandy Diaz hits an RBI single to drive in Taylor Walls from third base, move Margot all the way to third, and that was a play that was just very poorly made by the Orioles defense. It was just a ground ball between second and third that went right to the left fielder, and Margot gets from first all the way to third base on it. Typically, that does not happen, and that's why they're 20 games under 500. And then Mike Brasso strikes out looking with runners at the corners and 1 out, so that was a disappointing at bat. But it seemed like the last couple of days Brasso has had some strikeout lookings that may not have been his fault, just some kind of bad called strikes. Quinn Wolcott, the home plate umpire, calling the balls and strikes today. And then Randy Arozarena grounded out to end the inning. Then in the fourth, a leadoff single for Lau, followed by a single by Mejia to make it first and second with nobody out. Then Joey Wendell with a close play, grounding out to the first baseman, and he had a diving head first, which, I mean, it seems like we only see that about once or twice a year for the Rays. The last one I can even recall was that opening series last season against the Blue Jays, that Sunday game, I believe, the bottom of the ninth, and Brandon Lau did it. I think with 2 outs to get on first with an infield single, and they come back in, I think the 10th maybe. I don't know why I remember that so vividly, but to the point is just how rare it happens. And so that play by Wendell, that ground out, moved the first and second to second and third. So then with 2 men in scoring position, Taylor Walls hit another opposite field 2 RBI single. Then Brett Phillips walked after I believe it was after the caught stealing by Taylor Walls. He walked, and then Margot flew out. The Rays go down 1, 2, 3 in the fifth. Then in the third, They get a 1-out walk, do nothing with it. And then, of course, in the 7th, where they hit the grand slam, a leadoff walk for Phillips. So you're seeing that trend. Every inning the Rays scored in, the 3rd, the 4th, and the 7th, they get the leadoff man on base twice with a walk. Twice with a single and only once with a walk. The leadoff walk to the 9-man Phillips, and that always seems to burn you, the 9-man. Then a single by Margot to make it, first and second. Nobody out, there was an error by the center fielder, Austin Haynes, and just a horrible kind of throw by him, a lazily throw into the infield. So it should have been probably first and second, maybe with nobody out, but instead it was runners at second and third with nobody out, so you knew that they were probably going to get at least one run out of that with no outs. A strikeout for Yandy Diaz, where he looked a bit jittery at the plate today. And then Austin Meadows pinch hits for Mike Brasso against the righty Cesar Valdez. And he gets intentionally walked for some reason. I mean, they did have first base open, but only with 1 out. And also to bring up Arozarena. And Arozarena gets... I want to see what ESPN considers that. I know it's either a slider or a changeup. We'll see what they say. 410 feet to right center. On a 1-1 count, it was a changeup at 71, down and away. And that's a pitch that he's not been able to do a ton of damage to. I mean, it's been swinging at it a lot, and that's kind of a pitch where you ground out, to the first baseman on. But instead, get some power behind it. Anytime you hit that pitch, 410 feet, it went just barely over the wall, but that's just because it was, it's a deep part of Tropicana Field. I think that's a testament to maybe a run that Randy is on right now, and again, has extended his hitting streak to 8 games. So I'd love maybe Randy to hit leadoff in this upcoming series against the White Sox, and he's going to get a ton of hits against the Mariners probably this upcoming weekend. So, and that was also his 8th home run of the year. They got a single later in the inning, but didn't do anything with it. Leadoff single in the 8th and leave him as well. So, forget the scoring chances. How about just all the innings and how they went? But that's mainly because they did have scoring chances, it seemed like, in almost every inning, and was able to cash out. Anytime, you put up a touchdown, seven runs, that's a good thing. Bucks over Ravens. No. Rays over Orioles. The leadoff man, Margot, he goes 2 for 5 today, no walks and a strikeout, an average that's up to 244, and it seems like he'll stay right at around that mark. He is, I think, a 250 hitter that will strike out a fair amount, and an on-base percentage that's only 40 points higher. I mean, he's not walking very much, just swinging at just about everything. The leadoff single in the first, ran out a double play ball in the third, flew out with a man on first and 2 outs in the fourth, hit a single to make it second and third because of the error in the 7th that led to the grand slam in the 7th inning, and then struck out in the 8th. And I believe it was fun in right field to not have a whole lot of plays that came to him. First baseman Yandy Diaz today went 1 for 5 with a run knocked in, no walks, 2 strikeouts. His average is down to 254 and on base at 391. And going into the game, at least, had the 4th highest on base percentage in the American League, and a walk rate higher than just about anyone. I believe he's got 10 or 15 more walks than strikeouts, but has been striking out quite a bit lately. Did so in the first inning and in the 7th. That strikeout in the first was with Margot at first base and nobody out. He did hit an RBI single with a runner at third and 1 out there. So a sac fly, potential spot, but hit a line drive there, to bring in the run. So that was good to see. Grounded out to shortstop to start the 5th inning. Struck out in the 7th and flew out to right in the 8th. And those strikeouts, I would say, were probably uncharacteristic of him. In the first inning against Bruce Zimmerman, went down in 3 pitches, took a fastball up and in that he usually takes for balls, and it was called a strike, so another kind of Quinn Walcott play, if you will. Then fouled off a changeup, 0-2, and then chased the slider down and in that he usually takes, but an 0-2. That's just going to happen. Then in the 7th inning for Yandy Diaz, He did start off 3-1. It was a 6-pitch at bat, so up 3-1. He fouls off a changeup and then gets a changeup down and away and just chases at it. So he was chasing, down and in, down and away. Pitches that he usually takes, and especially in a 3-ball count, you'd think he would take that pitch. So again, I would say uncharacteristic for Yandy Diaz, but he has had a pretty bad day. Had 2 strikeouts yesterday, a strikeout on Friday. And he was actually okay in that National Series, so just maybe a bit of an off weekend for him against the O's. In the 3 spot, it was Mike Brasso 0 for 3, and he ended up getting pinch hit for, obviously, in the 7th. No walks, a strikeout, and an average that's down to 184. And as I said, I anticipate him probably getting sent down to Durham, or maybe they move him, although I don't think that would be the right call, but who knows. With Ji-Man Choi being brought back up. Popped up in the 1st, struck out looking in the 3rd, and that's an at-bat I would like to look at because it seemed like there were some borderline pitches that probably should have gone the other way. It was runners at the corners for Brasso with 2 outs to give you the situation. Starts off 2-1. He had chased a slider down and in for the first strike, then fouled off a fastball up and in, and took a slider that was maybe a half baseball inside off the plate, a slider there to go down looking. And maybe you would say with runners at the corners and with 1 out, you got to put the ball in play. But if he had popped up on that pitch, we would have been kind of crushing him for that. So, made the right decision probably to take that pitch and just that was it. He grounded out also in a 1-2-3 in the 5th, so that was pretty much that at bat. So unfortunate in his biggest chance of the game. Got a little bit screwed. Excuse the language, but that's really what it seemed like to me. Really got shortchanged is maybe the phrase I should have used, as we're trying to keep it clean here on this online radio program. Randy Arozarena in the cleanup spot. He goes 1 for 4 with 4 runs knocked in, of course, with a grand slam. No walks, a strikeout, and average is up to 261, and his 8-game hitting streak has certainly got his average back up there. I don't know if he's going to get back over 300 where he was. Seemingly when the team was at its worst, it seemed like his average was over 300 and had a bit of a rough stretch and has been kind of up and down since. And on base percentage, almost 100 points higher at 342, so a guy that's doesn't seem like he walks a lot, but obviously the stats bear it out. Maybe it's all those hit by pitches that he's had this year as well. Struck out in the 1st inning, also grounded out to end the 3rd with runners at the corners, so that was a bit disappointing. Lined out, did hit the ball hard again in the 5th and 1-2-3. And that fielder's choice, I believe, the ground out with runners at the corners in the 3rd, that was a pretty hard hit ground ball as well. And then that liner right to Franco in the 5th, that's a good hit ball. So did get a little bit shortchanged there as well, just a bit unlucky. And then of course the grand slam, the changeup down and away, and that he's able to hit it 410 feet to right center. Oppo Taco, as the kids say, very impressive for his 8th homer of the year, and would like to see him get a little bit more of those. I think there's no doubt he's going to be at least a 20-20, maybe even a 30-30 player. But if I had to say, probably has a better chance of getting to 30 home runs than he does to 30 stolen bases. But now that I say that, I'm not exactly sure, because we're about a month away from the All-Star break, and he's only got 8 home runs. So that would obviously have him having quite a successful second half, which would not be uncharacteristic of him. But yeah, 20-20 player for sure. 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases. I believe he's already got 10 or 11 swiped back, so he's having quite a year, offensively in those kind of traditional numbers. And by the way, I've been waiting for a way to kind of work this in, and I might as well just throw it out here. And it's just a stat along the bottom scroll feed of Bally Sports Sun during the games, but the Rays lead Major League Baseball with stolen bases in games after May 1st with 34. I mean, that's a month and a half of games, and stealing a bag almost every day. I guess that would be stealing 3 bases every 4 days, something along those lines. 75%, whatever. The back of the napkin math, don't look too deep into it. They had I was looking at the wrong one. Today they had just one stolen base. It was Taylor Wall's third, but he was also caught stealing. So Taylor Walls, man, has been really wild on the base path maybe the last week or so, and we knew that we had heard about his base running prowess in the minor leagues, and they didn't really run him early, which I think made sense. If you're going to get him on base, don't kind of push your luck. But lately they've been running him quite a bit as he's been settled in, and again has worked out to an extent. ESPN is saying that's his first caught stealing, and I know that that's wrong, but his third stolen base, and I'd probably imagine maybe his third caught stealing as well if I had to say. But where were we? Talking about Randy's Grand Slam. Okay, the five-man, Brandon Lau was 1 for 4 with a run scored, no walks, no strikeouts. I feel like I need to break out the champagne. I think I made that joke yesterday. Brandon Lau is now back over the Mendoza line. Checks the watch. It is June 13th, and Brandon Lau is now just hitting over 200 at 201. So I think maybe even as much as again, no pun intended, we've been dogging the dog because that's what his nickname. He's the dog. That's a really bad stretch. Again, I mean he'll probably end the first half of the year hitting maybe 210, and then if he goes back into another slump, I mean maybe 190. So it's certainly not an all-star consideration at the very least, but has been staying through, and boy, has he been really, really terrific defensively. One of the best defensive second basemen, at least in the American League, if not in all the majors. As I say every time we talk about him, it seems like every day he's taking a hit away between first and second in shallow right field, and kind of that shift. And even though he started in left field today, he moved to second base in the 8th inning, and of course in that 8th, the first out of the inning from Michael Franco came right to him, which is funny because of course we talk about it. The moment he goes to second base, it's right to him, or not right to him, but that chance where he has to make kind of that running, diving grab to glove the ball, and not just do that, but get up and throw a good liner to Yandy Diaz at first to get the out. So as bad as he's been at the plate this year, has never taken that frustration with him out to the field, and that's something that even he talks about. And you talk about a real level-headed guy, and I think a guy that's really perceptive and understands the game and the ups and downs of it. Brandon Lau, a guy that is incredibly mature, and maybe we don't give him enough credit for that. But every time we hear him, when he's doing a press conference or what, I mean, he's only 26 years old. But by all indications, is a fantastic guy, and really is a good ball player. And as they say, this too shall pass. Francisco Mejia went a good day for him, 2 for 3 at the plate with a walk. So reaching base 3 times in 4 plate appearances, an average that's up to 252, and on base at 319. So his numbers really aren't that bad. Despite a bad little stretch, fairly limited playing time, especially as well, and you throw in an injured list stint on top of that. It's probably towards the bottom in number of at-bats, excluding guys like, Padlo, or that's the only guy I can name that really isn't. I mean, he's Francisco Mejia, Kevin Padlo is probably the only guy that Mejia has more at-bats than, so just to give you an idea of his limited playing time. Which makes sense at a catcher position. I mean, that's all he plays as catcher. And Zunino having probably his best career year at the plate, that's going to keep Mejia on the bench more times than not. But he's a switch hitter and can play small ball with the bunts and stuff, and has walked quite a bit as well. So good to see him have a good game. Hit a single following the leadoff single by Lau in the 4th. A 1-out walk in the 6th, and then a 2-out single in the 7th, and I think he went the other way in the 7th as well. So a nice day at the plate for him. Joey Wendell 0 for 4, no walks, no strikeouts, averaged down to 286. And just when we thought he was coming back out, maybe of a slump, he had an RBI double in a single yesterday. 0 for 4 today, kind of fizzles that out, but every day is a new day, and he played a terrific game defensively, as did Mike Brasso, if I hadn't mentioned. It seemed like almost every play early in the game was coming right to him had probably led the team in putouts, or rather maybe assists. Taylor Walls, who we talked so much about, so I'll kind of spare going through the whole rhetoric again. 3 for 4 with a run scored and 2 knocked in. That 250 average. Hit a leadoff walk in the third. Hit that 2 RBI single in the fourth. Popped out in a quick inning in the sixth, and then hit a leadoff single in the eighth, and was going the other way, I think, all 3 of the times. Twice as a righty and then once as a lefty. So to do it, from both sides of the plate is terrific. I believe his first home run came from the left side, and his power numbers might be better, but he's a better average hitter from the right side, and that's was the case today. Those 2 singles against Zimmerman obviously came from the right side, so interesting to see if that will continue. And again, a 250 hitter. This might have been his 20th game played. I can definitely check that. It's definitely right around there. So just to give you an idea, I mean, he's still really finding himself as a major league player. Really is a lot different, I would say, than Willy Adames' first stint. Of course, because Adames, I think, played only 1 or 2 games and then got sent back down for another month and then got called back up. So this is Taylor Walsh. Yeah, today was his 20th game played. So look at me, I nailed that. I'm on top of my game tonight. And then Brett Phillips in the 9th spot, 0 for 1 with a run scored and 3 walks. So anytime a guy with a 212 average is walking 3 times in a game, in the 9-hitter, that is really impressive. And a guy that I don't give credit really for walking enough, and again, it seems like he's always kind of a wild free swinger at the plate. I mean, just going at everything, and maybe in a less effective. He's like a less effective kind of version than Manny Margot is what I would say, but maybe that's selling him a bit short. An on-base percentage of .329. His on-base percentage is 110 points higher than his average, which is probably the greatest disparity of those 2 stats than anyone on the roster. So that just gives you an idea. Is really not all that great of a hitter, but an on-base percentage nearly on par with a guy like Yandy Diaz. So he's finding base quite a bit, which is interesting. Not a whole lot of extra base hits in his game either, but I think he has 3 home runs to his name, so not bad in that regard either. A walk in the third with Walsey at first base, so that was good to move a man over. Another walk with a man at first, I believe, in the fourth. A leadoff walk in the 7th that led to the grand slam, and then ran out a double play ball in the 8th. So that was his day. So walked in his first 3 plate appearances, and that was really funny to see, of course, with all the antics with the hit by pitch stuff against Jorge Lopez yesterday. And again, 10 hits, 5 walks, 5 strikeouts, 3 for 8 with runners in scoring position. Wendell 0 for 1, Yandy 1 for 2, Margot 0 for 1, Brasso 0 for 1, Randy was 1 for 2, of course, with the grand slam, and then Walsey was 1 for 1. And they left a total of 7 men on base, but it seems like that happens about every game, and I'll tell you, I like 3 for 8. With 7 left, a lot more than I like 1 for 4 with runners in scoring position and 2 left, which is what the Orioles had today. And again, it's easy to bellyache about leaving men in scoring position, but at least we're getting them there. I mean, teams like Baltimore can't even say that. So, and of course, the Rays, the first team to 42 wins, best record in the majors, obviously, and all those things is terrific. And again, really cannot stress how excited I am for that Chicago series this week. Talking about the pitchers. Not to really stress anything I did already. Michael Wacha, the 2 innings, 1 run and 2 hits. Again, the changeup was not a good pitch, so he was forced just to go to the fastball. And a guy that just pounds the zone and throws hittable strikes, I think is a good way to describe it. And so when they're selling out on the fastball and it's in a hittable location, I mean, you're going to get hit around. And that happened a little bit. But, I mean, it wasn't to an extreme set. A leadoff single in the game, righty and lefty, and then a runner at third and 2 outs into Pat Valleca. So an extremely small sample size today, but this is a consistent thing for Wacha, and he walked a guy in 2 innings, which is not terrific either. It's funny. He's a guy that throws a lot of strikes, but he also walks guys, so it doesn't really make sense, but it's just everything in not such a good way. not that he's been horrible. I mean, an ERA of 4.54, so it has been just really an average kind of pitcher, and that's what I think he is. And at this point, where the Rays are right now, that's not deserving of a spot in the starting rotation. I think that moment it kind of came and went. He had a couple, good 6-inning starts, and if guys go down, in the second half or even, in the next month, he's going to have to step in. But I think that's exactly where his role is right now, is just a step-in guy. And who knows, maybe he gets DFA'd tomorrow when Choi gets brought up. That would probably be the pitcher that would least surprise me, maybe get sent down. Him and Jeffrey Springs. Springs to get sent down, Walker to get DFA'd. But if not, it's got to be Brasso going down, right? Then Josh Fleming, 4 innings of relief following Walker, and he qualified for the win. He's now 6-4. Was really terrific with a 3-pitch mix. The sinker at 91, and then the cutter at high 80s, and then of course that changeup that kind of plays like a slider at the low 80s, and was working them all. Had a ton of swing and miss at the sinkers. Really just kind of going down and away. And middle down to the right-handed hitters, and Fleming left on right. He had a different approach to DJ Stewart, but that was the only lefty. But did face a couple switch hitters, it looked like, to the lefties, or switch hitters in the left batter's box. He was just going heavy sinkers, and that ended up being a really good approach. And then against righties, mixing things up a little bit more. So 4 innings hitless, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. So 3 strikeouts over 4 innings for Fleming is a bit high as well. And he was getting a pretty good amount of chase on that sinker. That seemed to be his best pitch today. Had really nice, tight, late break to it. In the 13 batters he faced, established the first pitch strike to 10 of the 13, which is an incredible number. Walker, by the way, 6 for 8 as well. So they both did a pretty good job of that. And then for Fleming, padding the strike zone, 63 pitches, 42 for strikes, and an earned run average that's down to 320. I just wanted to get the percentage of that because that's got to be a fairly high number. About a 67% strike ratio. So really not bad at all. For Josh Fleming, and a really good day for him. Going into the day, we thought maybe Walker would be stretched out. He goes 3, and then we thought maybe Fleming would go 4, or maybe Walker for 2 and Fleming for 5. It was all going to depend on the score and matchups and things. I thought maybe they would combine for 7. They end up combining for 6. But either way, that really works out. And I mean, in a 7-1 game, that allowed them to match their bullpen very well. But Matt Whistler making his Rays debut, the game was only 3-1 in the 7th. So that was a fairly high leverage situation for him. But they had to get him in a game at some point, and I think to get it against the O's rather than before maybe that White Sox series. And maybe I'm overplaying that a little bit, but I really do think it is a big deal. That was a good choice, a good chance to get Whistler in. And he was a guy we talked about a couple nights ago when he, in the trade over from San Francisco, he was designated for assignment by the Giants. And the Rays basically take a flyer on him, although they give up some cash considerations, but also a decent starting pitching prospect. But they were not planning to put him on the 40-man. I think Plesmeyer was his name. And if they didn't put him on the 40-man, he was definitely easily going to be a Rule 5 draft pick. So they were able to kind of take care of that issue in kind of a 40-man roster crunch. And they're able to get back a guy that maybe they like in return. So maybe a Whistler, it's just kind of a buy low type thing. But he's out of minor league option, so once it's done, it's done. I don't imagine he would clear waivers because he did not this time, obviously, getting traded over to the Rays. But Whistler, again, in a 3-1 game in the 7th. 11 of his 12 pitches were sliders. It was about an 83-84. And I thought it was a pretty decent pitch. Certainly has got some Chaz Rowe in his game. I don't think it's as good as a Chaz Rowe or a Ryan Thompson slider. But we'll get more familiar with him. Although maybe there's not really much to learn because almost every single pitch was a slider. The situation for the righty Whistler, he faced 2 righties and a switch hitter. So to the 2 righties, I mean, it was just sliders down and away, down and away, down and away. and was getting into a decent amount of swing and miss. It did have a decent amount of late break to it. And then to the switch hitter Galvis, who of course was hitting lefty against him. The first pitch he went a fastball up and away, but it looked like it slipped out of his hand. But at 92, it was a four-seamer, 10 miles an hour faster than his other pitches, so it was clear that was his fastball. And then he only threw it once, and the rest were just sliders. And the three at-bats to Mountcastle, it was a flyout on a 1-2 pitch, a slider that was started really headed right to him and then kind of broke in, down and in, so that could end up being a good pitch. Struck out Haynes on a 2-2 pitch, a slider just kind of down and away, and then to Galvis on a 1-1 in the lefty batter's box, just a slider kind of down and in, and he just grounded out to third base on it. So as a lefty, that was going the other way on a pitch down and in, so that's a bit rare to see as well, assuming my math is right, which I'm hoping it is. So that was it for Whistler, and not much more to say really about his game. Look forward to seeing him some more. Andrew Kittredge in a really nice eighth inning work where he punches out a couple guys, faced the 7, 8, 9. But either way, I mean, sinker sliders. I would argue that he's maybe better than Diego Castillo right now. They're both sinker slider types. Kittredge's velocity is probably better than Castillo. I don't know what's going on with Diego right now. Fingers crossed it's not going to be an injury list stint thing, although he has been on the IL. Although it was with the groin, so why is that affecting velocity? Unless I'm missing something. But either way, I mean that in every possible way as a compliment to Andrew Kittredge. And only 9 pitches, so he's been incredibly efficient. And that's been another story this weekend. I mean, 12 pitch inning for Whistler, a 9 pitch at bat for Kittredge. You look at on Saturday. A 9 pitch inning for Fairbanks. You look on Friday, an 8 pitch inning for Kittredge, a 10 pitch inning for Fairbanks. So really just Kittredge and Fairbanks, I guess, the only guys doing it. But Whistler with one in there as well. Springs finished the game with a 15 pitch, 9 strike, 9th inning. Free and easy, struck out Stewart Looking, and then got Mancini and Santander. So it's been a bit since we've seen Springs. Maybe in a spot quite like this where they were leading late in the game. And with a 3.41 ERA, it's not been terrible. I know he's probably one of the Rays' fans, I should say, least favorite bullpen guys, but has been fine. I want to say he gave up the only walk-off of the year that was in Oakland, and then I want to say has maybe blown another game in the 9th, if I'm not mistaken, and I apologize if I'm wrong about that, but I think has at least blown a couple late game spots. But I don't think he's going to be put back in there. He's kind of in a traditional kind of game, if they need him, he's kind of a 5th or 6th inning guy, but in a blowout or if you're trailing, you can use him kind of anywhere. So that was the case here today. For the pitching staff, 127 pitches, total 83 strikes, so that's fairly efficient. They allowed only 2 hits to the Orioles, and after Walker's 2-inning appearance, 7 innings hitless for the Orioles. They did not have a single base runner after the 3rd inning, so that was really terrific for the Rays and able to get that game. The fact that happened in the game was almost still 3 hours. I mean, geez, Major League Baseball, get these games shorter, do something. I don't know what to do. Make the hitter stay in the batter's box, something. And so with that, we close the book on today's Rays win. Terrific. Of course, the pitching, mainly Fleming, and the bullpen does what they do. Rays with some clutch hitting early. A great game at the plate for Taylor Walls. And then Randy Rosarena's first career Grand Slam. And great that it happened at the Trop and on a Sunday afternoon crowd and everything. So that was good. Good to see. A very interesting series coming up. Rays go to the south side for the first time since April of 2019, where I think they had a 3-game sweep of the White Sox. The Rays at 42-24. The White Sox just basically a half game under at 41-24. So basically identical records. Both teams are in first place of their respective divisions. really the first time legitimately that the Rays are playing a division front runner. The only really time that it's happened this season was that series in Kansas City in April when they were in first place, but they're not anymore, and they're not a legit division really contender. Obviously, the White Sox are 10.5 games up on Kansas City right now. So, and Kansas City's 4 games under 500. So this is really the fact that it's second until mid-June. Although the schedule was pretty difficult early, this is really the first legitimate test that the Rays have had this season. The White Sox have a 5.5 game lead in the AL Central. That's over Cleveland, and it looks like the Indians are really going to be the only potential threat to the White Sox. But I don't think Cleveland is going to be able to hang around. So it kind of is a one-man show right now for Chicago. You know, Tony La Russa, the manager, coming back. There's a lot of interesting storylines with his team. And not to mention really a terrific lineup that they have as well. Taking a look at one of the last lineups they used against the Tigers, where they got the sweep in Detroit. They've got Tim Anderson hitting leadoff, Yasmani Grandal in there as well, although he's only hitting 163. Jose Abreu, the AL MVP from last year, he's hitting 255. I didn't say it, but Tim Anderson batting at 300 right now. Yohan Mercedes hitting at 290. They've got Adam Eaton, former National, as kind of a small ball guy, although he's under the Mendoza line. And that looked to be it. I know they've had a couple injuries. Brian Goodwin, his debut was a couple days ago, and he had 5 runs batted in, so I'd imagine that's probably one of their prospects. And the White Sox, a team that was in a rebuilding period for quite a while, and all those prospects that they acquired are now all in the big leagues, and that's allowed them to really terrific. Again, they're only half game under the Rays, in the American League standing, so really, really terrific. They've got Nick Madrigal, their second base on the 60-day IL, and Michael Kopech, a starting pitcher on the 10-day IL. That's it. Injuries for the White Sox looks like right now. In their last 5, they are 4-1. They've got a 3-game sweep in Detroit against the Tigers, and then before that they had a 2-1, basically, taking 2 out of 3 against the Toronto Blue Jays in Chicago. So they've been on a decent run lately, looking maybe a little bit prior to that, looking at their schedule. They played Detroit, took 3 out of 4 before them, so they've been playing a lot of crummy teams lately. They had taken 4 out of 4 from Baltimore, 2 out of 3 from St. Louis, and then really the last time they've been bad, they got swept in the Bronx against the Yankees, but again, since then have been really, really good. So 2 teams definitely playing their best baseball right now. As a team, the White Sox are hitting 254. That's in comparison to the Rays at 230. The White Sox have 12 less home runs than us, 76 compared to 65. Their on-base percentage is about 20 points higher, 318 for the Rays, 342 for the White Sox. And their team ERAs are about the same, 328 for the Rays, 321 for the White Sox. So very, very similar teams. Walk numbers and strikeout numbers are almost identical as well. Again, any way you want to slice it, I know I'm really, really selling this thing hard. I should be a promoter or something for this. But it's going to be a great series. The pitching matchups are going to be terrific, as we'll talk about in a second. Tomorrow's game at 8:10, Tyler Glasnow and Lance Lynn. Then on Tuesday, Shane McClanahan and Dallas Keuchel. Keuchel is 5-1 with a 4.14 earned run average. And I guess we'll see, maybe not anymore, but going into the year, their de facto ace. It's Ryan Yarbrough's day to pitch, although it's a TBD for the Tampa Bay Rays. An afternoon game on Wednesday against Lucas Giolito, 5-5 with a 381 earned run average. Yeah, expect Yarbrough to handle bulk innings in Wednesday's game. If not an outright starter, which, hashtag let Yarb start. I can't believe I'm making that movement, but I think we might have to if he doesn't get the start on Wednesday. With the kind of run he's been having, again, you can't go a complete game if you don't start. So Kevin Cash should keep that in mind. previewing tomorrow's contest, and we'll be on the air, all this week talking the game, so we don't need to preview the whole series in advance, obviously. It is Tyler Glasnow against Lance Lynn, probably the best matchup out of the 3 games. Tyler Glasnow, 5-2, 2.57 ERA, and Lance Lynn somehow better. And I guess maybe he's the front runner for AL Cy Young. You would say he's got to be. Lance Lynn, 7-1 with a 123 earned run average, although about 20 innings less pitched than Glasnow. But somehow, better record. That's kind of surprising. But Glasnow has gone a while without decisions and a while without a winning decision as well. Glasnow, the 27-year-old right-hander, is 5-2 on the year with a 2.57 ERA. Looking at his last time out, it was against the Washington Nationals. Went 7 innings, 1 run on 6 hits, 1 walk, 11 strikeouts, 114 pitches thrown. That was after a 100-pitch performance, but triple digits is no stranger to him. So they let him go out to start that 7th with, I think, around 100 pitches. So maybe they're going to shortchange his start a little bit, although I don't imagine. Expect 6 or 7 innings, probably 100 or so pitches. Unless he's kind of shell-shocked, it's going to be a full crowd, I believe, in what is their stadium called? Guaranteed Rate Field, and I've been there a couple years ago. It's a pretty nice ballpark. He's shell-shocked by kind of the full crowd and one of the more dynamic lineups he's faced. So maybe let's say he goes 6 innings and maybe gives up. I'll say maybe 6 innings, 3 runs allowed. I think that would be a pretty decent estimate, and depending if they're winning or losing on the road. If they're losing, they only need to cover 2 more. If they're winning, obviously 3 more. But everyone is available out of the pen. Fairbanks, Castillo, Fireisen, Whistler could go again. Everyone. Kittredge, Thompson, whoever. Everyone is ready to come out of the pen. Looking to see if Glasnow, I know, pitched against them in 2019. However similar, the lineups are. I can't imagine there's very much similarities. But on April 10th of 2019, at Chicago, 6 innings of work, scoreless, 2 hits, 1 walk, 11 strikeouts, and he got a 3-0. That improved him to an 0.53 under an average. That was when he had a legitimate Cy Young bid going. Not to go too far off, but before he got injured, he was 6-1 with a 1.86 ERA. And that's a darn shame that he got hurt, because he really didn't come back until September and really wasn't even stretched out then. And had a couple of really bad playoff starts against the Astros, but let's leave that where it belongs, in the past. And going for the White Sox, the 34-year-old right-hander is 71 on the year with a 123 earned run average. A guy, I remember him as a Texas Ranger, and but that was only 2019 and 2020. It was a Twin and a Yankee in 2018, and then 2011 through 2017, he came up with the St. Louis Cardinals. So he's a guy that's been everywhere, has got all kinds of postseason experience as well. So at 34 years old, is a well-traveled guy, the right-hander, as I mentioned. His last time out, and obviously the first time facing the Rays, the first time these two teams will meet. Lynn went 7 innings against the Blue Jays, 1 run on 4 hits. It was a solo home run allowed, 9 strikeouts and no walks. The walks, the last couple starts has been good. No walks, 2 walks, no walks. So the control has been pretty good as of late and has been consistent really all season. The earned run average has been there. He also has a complete game shutout April 8th against the Royals. He had a 7-inning shutout against the Cardinals. And that's probably his best starts of the season. Looking maybe if he faced the Rays as a Ranger in 2019. He did once, twice, and oh boy, had really good starts both times. So, Lance Lynn against the Rays in 2019, and I imagine the lineups are a bit different. On June 28th, he went 8-inning shutout on 3 hits. And then on September 10th, 7 innings, 1 run on 4 hits. So really 2 terrific starts. So maybe you would say he's probably poised for a good start. If I was a betting man, which I'm not, obviously, I would probably be putting a couple bucks down on the White Sox, money line, maybe even to cover, just because of Lance Lynn's history against the Rays. And I would imagine if I had to say Glasnow could be in a bit of a jam tomorrow, but who knows? I could say that and he'll go out and throw a no-hitter. With the righty starter back on the mound, things going a bit more traditional. Kind of the last lineup they had against the right-hander, they had Brandon Lau in the leadoff spot. So, I mean, let's say they kind of do the same. Wendell at third, Walsey at short, Lau at second. Probably they go G-Man Choi at first. They call him up, and Brasso probably getting sent down. And then in the outfield, Kiermaier and Phillips, center and right, and then, you take your pick whether you want Meadows out there, you want to DH him, you want to keep him on the bench. The same with Randy, either in left or DH. I'd imagine maybe Meadows goes on the bench. They put maybe Randy in left and maybe DH Margot, or vice versa. They want to DH Randy again, have Margot in left, and then, like I said, probably have Meadows on the bench to come up in a late game situation. They've got one of the better closers do the White Sox in the game in Liam Hendricks, so that'll be interesting as well if they are in a position to lock down the win. So very, very excited in anticipation of this upcoming series. Of course, tomorrow's game. It is going to be an 8:10 start as the Rays are in the Central Time Zone in Chicago. So that game probably will end at 11:30. We'll try and be on the air by midnight, assuming the game ends then. So definitely stay tuned for that. If you're interested, please listen to the show tomorrow night. Follow us on Twitter at WHBCOfficial. Follow the show page where you're listening to this on Spreaker.com to make sure you get the show when it goes live. Thanks for everyone for tuning in from the Rays Discord server, from the Rays Reddit page, all of our loyal listeners. I say thank you. We'll be on tomorrow. Hopefully the Rays win, and it'll be a good one. We'll see you then.
Sports Radio 101.9 FM and Sports Radio 66. The Fan.
HBC.
W